October 28th, 2023. Well, the main thing I want to hit here is kind of do an update on what's going on in the Russia-Ukraine war, which we haven't really been talking about too much lately, and lots been happening because there's been a lot else in the news. I mean, the ongoing Israeli-Hamas conflict, which apparently, as of this recording, is finally starting to go into more of a high gear, if you will. And then, of course, then we had the mass shooter in Maine, who fortunately has been found dead, so we can avoid a trial and all that. Because the longer this, but that's a whole different issue. And and like I say, it's a little early to say a whole lot more about the how Israel's going to do in their incursion in there, but it looks like they've taken time to make proper preparations. So at any rate, I want to get on to the main topic here, which is, what's happened lately. And that basically, I think, I kind of briefly hit on it at the end of one of my previous videos, but things have continued to develop. And fundamentally, it looks as if the Ukrainian offensive has pretty much ran out of gas. And although there's still some struggles in the Robotina area, and there are still some somewhat struggles south of Bakhmut. But other than that, all across the line, the Russians are actually now on the offensive primarily, particularly at Advika, I can pronounce it right, which they're moving into kind of a pincer movement to surround it. There's several other clashes going on along the line that are less significant, but overall it looks as if the Russians are starting to make moving ahead and with their various offensives. So that's one of the things you have to look at here. Another development which apparently has happened, which we haven't got much report on the Western press, but certainly the pro-Russian sites have touted pretty heavily, is the introduction of their R-37M missile, which is a updated version of the R-37, which is something like a 400-kilometer range air-to-air missile. And apparently they've been pretty much blasting the Ukrainian Air Force out of the air in the last month or so with that thing. It's launched from the MiG-31, and apparently they've been taking out Su-24s and MiG-29s and MiG-29s and so forth quite readily. And there's been almost no mention of that in the West, but apparently that has happened as far as we can tell. And then of course, on the other hand, the introduction of our so-called ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, and a particular variant, which is I believe it's the shorter range cluster munition variant, which has the large quantity of bomblets in it. And so that's and of course the introduction of that was useful to destroy a bunch of Russian helicopters, which apparently were in the open and unprotected from shielding and so forth. So anyway, that's kind of, but it looks as if the Russians are fundamentally, on the offensive at the moment. If you like these videos, please give me a like. You can, of course, subscribe and click the bell for notifications. The Advika operation has a particular significance because it's very close to the capital of the Donetsk, well, it was a People's Republic. I think they're now calling it, I guess it's just an oblast of Russia from the Russian point of view, and it's occupied territory from the Ukrainian point of view. But at any rate, because that is coming under artillery fire repeatedly from the Ukrainians, including now our cluster munitions we provided, which they're calling foul. There's a lot of foul in this war, so I don't think anybody has a clean slate in it. But they're doing it, and of course, so by taking Advika, if the Russians can pull this off, and a lot of the Donetsk forces are actually, their units are directly involved in this to a great extent, more than Russian ethnic forces, as I understand it, although the Russians are presumably providing the artillery and air support and that sort of thing. But anyhow, if they can take that, then they can push the Ukrainian artillery out of range. So I guess they can shoot HIMARS and ATACMS at it, but they really won't be able to just use ordinary field artillery, which is what's cheap. So that's one of the reasons they want to do it. Otherwise, is it would just be it's sort of like like Bakhmut. It's an area where they can launch an offensive, but um, they've certainly made more progress on that so far than they did with Bakhmut in the early days, because the Russians have already managed to take the high ground, which will then allow them to look down on the Ukrainian forces and fire on their supply routes and so forth. So at any rate, that's a major event that's ongoing. And like I said, the introduction of the advanced air-to-air missile has been significant. The other thing, I guess, we have an ongoing, effort with these robot drone submersible or semi-submersible things attacking Russian ships, which has pretty much corralled the Russian surface fleet in the Black Sea, I think. And I don't, as I say, for the future, the U.S. Navy better watch out, because we may have something like that coming for us someday too, now that the idea is out of the bag, so to speak. I guess going back to coal back at 20-some years ago, the idea had sort of been out anyhow, but that was a suicide attack, where this will be a little different, robotic. But anyhow, so that's one major factor. The other thing that was kind of discussed recently here is that the Russians, there's been some talk about putting MiG-31s of all places into the into Crimea, basically, in Sevastopol or whatever. To me, that sounds to me to be kind of stupid. I mean, whatever utility they might have, aren't they going to get destroyed by the ATACMS missiles or Storm Shadows or something like that in that location? And so I don't know whether that's really going to happen. I thought a lot occurred to me that this could be a trick, that they may take some old MiG-25s that look very similar to the 31 that are in what we might call the boneyard, things that have been decommissioned, but they still have the airframes, and they might move them into an airfield type setting there, trying to lure the Ukrainians into using some of their more exotic weaponry to blow them up, but they'd just be hitting basically decoys, and then maybe that would give them a chance to take a shot back at the launchers or something. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense what they're describing and saying they're going to do. We'll see. The other factor is the Russians are claiming that they actually have been able to successfully shoot down some ATACMS missiles with their S-300 or 400 missiles, which I would think would be readily able to do that, actually. And I probably the initial use of those caught them a surprise, and now that they're recalibrating to look for high altitude, high velocity missiles, because those things do have an ATBM capability, anti-tactical ballistic missile capability. So I would think that that they would be better able to deal with ATACMS really than they could with Storm Shadow, which is a stealth cruise missile that kind of basically travels at low altitude below the radar until its final approach, then it pops up and comes down on you. And of course, only terminal defense would really be very effective against those. So anyhow, the other thing is shooting down the launching airplane before it could successfully launch them. Other than that, it kind of gets through. And so, anyway, so that's kind of the way the conflict is going. The propaganda line seems to be still saying something different. I've been hearing all kind of interesting reports, and like they're shooting people that are retreating. I don't think they're shooting people that are retreating. I think they're shooting deserters, perhaps, and that's not unusual in Russian armies. Or I don't know, maybe. Historically, I don't think it was beyond the U.S. military to do something like that. Let's say World War I or Civil War period. I'm not sure they would do it nowadays. Who knows what could have happened in World War II even. I'm talking about battlefield stuff, not formal judicial, if you know what I mean. In other words, they don't never get to a courtroom. And I don't know if they did, but I think in the olden days, even we would do stuff like that. Of course, in the olden days, we'd shoot rioters down in the street back in the 1890s too, you know. So, and actually use cannon on them during the Civil War. You know, we've sort of lost that old attitude, I guess. But at any rate, at any rate, there's the way we do things and the way Russia does things, and some of their ways are not so pleasant, right? Anyhow, so that's kind of as my assessment is, though, that Russia's on the prowl. They're obviously going to take some casualties with these attacks. They seem to have also introduced a new version of their Lancet drone, which is one of these attack drones that impacts on tanks and so forth. And the new variant, apparently, once it locks on, it goes automatic, and it doesn't have to be guided to the target. So it's got to kind of have a terminal approach is automated once it's locked on. Probably sort of like a TV guided bomb or missile, which exists also. Only this is more of a lightweight drone, but apparently that this has now been introduced and can destroy armored vehicles and other kind of targets. So each side is coming up with their own weaponry. This conflict continues to chew up a lot of lives on both sides, obviously. On the political side, we have repeated rumors of the demise of President Putin. The latest one was he had a massive heart attack over the weekend. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, but it looks like the Ukrainians have been, hoping for that for a long time. And so, at any rate, that's another one of these events that, that perennially pops up. So, at any rate. And then looking at the outcome in the House of Representatives, which kind of relates to this, the Biden proposal of a combined aid package for Ukraine and Israel, and maybe something about border security, which I guess the Senate is prepared to pass as a unified act. The House is hard to know. We have a new speaker, and the rebels that ousted McCarthy's big thing was one of their big things was ending aid to Ukraine. And I think Johnson here is, like I said all along, I don't think they're going to get what they want here. So unless this is just a personal vendetta against McCarthy over, who knows, some kind of slights that are personal in nature, not really ideological, my thinking is that they're going to end up getting not much different than you'd have with McCarthy, although you have a less experienced senior individual, so it's possible that he may make blunders simply due to his lack of experience, whereas with McCarthy, you had a seasoned professional, you might say. But at any rate, he's saying more. He wants to make sure that the aid to Ukraine is, monitored properly, and that it's, not diverted to other purposes like, I don't know, Zelensky's bank account or something, and a bunch of other people's too, presumably. So, at any rate, that's sort of auditing or whatever. He wants to put that in, and that may happen. I think that, I don't know, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that goes. I think a lot of people on the House side, at any rate, want to separate the issues into separate bills. And I'm sure as far as the border, they have a completely different idea of what the money should be used for. I mean, Biden wants the money to, let the help send more what would have normally been considered illegal immigrants into the country, and I presume that the Republicans in the House want to use it to build the border wall and secure the situation. So that'll be interesting to see how this will all happen. The other problem is that one thing, this guy is supposedly against continuing resolutions, which of course is what specifically ousted McCarthy. But given that we've lost 3 weeks out of the 45 days in the last continuing resolution, and he wants to pass this through separate bills and then get it through the Senate, and that amount of time that's left, we'll see how that turns out. But at any rate, these are all issues that are kind of related, and how the Ukraine aid comes through, which is relevant to this video, is going to be interesting to see exactly how that goes. Anyhow, so that's kind of it for this one. I'll of course post it on my backup channel at Rumble, and of course I make ongoing comments day by day on a variety of topics on what's now called X. And until next time.